I want to talk about the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Now, the Temple Mount is the holiest place on earth. How do we know that? Because God said He would choose a place, and then that's the place He chose. He could have put His home anywhere, but He specifically says in the Bible that He chose Mount Zion in Jerusalem, and He wanted His home built there, and sure enough, it was. Now, what's there now is a temple platform that was built by Herod the Great. It's got retaining walls and then a temple platform. And right now that platform has buildings like the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque on it. But at the time of Christ, it had the temple on it.
We're here at the site of the temple at the time of Jesus Christ, and we're looking at some of the stones. So you look at a stone like this one here, and this part of the wall was rebuilt, reconstructed. It does not go back to the time of Christ. It's actually relatively modern, but you can tell here's your 4-inch embossment and the relatively smooth but a chiseled look. So we can tell that particular stone was from Herod the Great. Now, as we look at these stones, there's been quite a debate through history about how they even got here. One of these stones is 46 feet long and about 10 by 10. Engineers estimate it's about 415 tons. So the question is, how do you get it up in the wall? The best ideas now are that they actually had a quarry at a higher level and they cut it out as a pillar and did a controlled roll to where they got it, and then they cut off the sides and dropped it over. Take a look at this road. This is an original road. The reason it looks crushed is because it was crushed. They pushed stones from way up there and beyond, and they fell on the road and kind of crushed it. I want to have us walk up and down the road as best we can, because this road was here at the time of Christ. Christ would have walked on this road.
Now we're looking at a map of Jerusalem in the time of Jesus Christ, and what we see, here's this black line that outlines what the city looked like in the time of Jesus Christ. And as we get to learn Jerusalem, what we learn is that down here, this little peninsula looking thing, this was the original Jebusite city that David conquered. And when David conquered it, then he expanded the city through this area and up into this hill, which was, we know up here is Mount Zion. And then Solomon built his temple up here on top of Mount Zion. Later on, Herod the Great expanded Solomon's temple.
So what he did is he put these huge walls in place and then filled in behind them with dirt and rock. And that made the upper platform very, very big.
But while Solomon's temple had been destroyed and rebuilt in the time of Hezekiah, and Herod the Great expanded it and made this huge temple platform, which is about 37 acres.
Otherwise, the top of the mountain was too small for Herod's grandiose plan. He had a gigantic plan for the temple and the buildings and the royal stoa and all of the porticos and things like that. Now, the history of that place it took a long time to develop, because if we go with a biblical chronology, about 1450-ish BC, God spoke to Moses and told him to build a tabernacle, and Moses did. But then for about 450 years, the tabernacle moved all over. It was in Shiloh, it was in Gilgal, it was in Gibeon, until David was king. And when David was king, God told him he wanted to buy this piece of land, and then your son Solomon is going to build a temple there. And God started talking about that way back with Moses in the book of Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy, God said some 20 times, I'm going to pick a place. There's a place that I will choose to put my name there. So God was very specific. I'm going to choose a place. And what He chose was Mount Zion. We're walking into where the steps are on the south side of the Temple Mount. And these steps are steps that Jesus no doubt would have walked up and down on. in his day. You'll see stone that you can clearly see is Herodian, and then you'll see at least 4 different types of stone building on top of that. Remember, there was the Herod, then there was the Roman destruction, then some rebuilding, then the Bar Kokhba revolt, then some rebuilding, then the Crusaders, then some rebuilding, then the Muslims and the Muslim conquest, and then some rebuilding. And the fact of the matter is that some of these stages, they didn't keep a record of it, and they don't even really know who rebuilt some of these layers. Now remember, when worshipers came to the temple, they needed to be ritually clean to go into the temple. And so one of the things that you see in this area are many mikvahs, or ritual baths. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish between a true ritual bath and just a cistern, but generally speaking, mikvahs were usually smaller, cisterns were usually bigger, and a mikvah would have steps. Sometimes you'll see them where the steps are divided, and there's like steps going down and then a little ridge or something that people would walk to the other side of. So you walk down unclean and you walk back up clean. I would say there's no chance that Jesus Christ did not walk up and down these steps. For example, when he was healing the man who was born blind, and he told the man after healing him, he said, go wash in the pool of Siloam. And it was as he was leaving the temple that, where would he be leaving for? He just told the man to go wash in the pool of Siloam, and the pool of Siloam is that way. So it makes really good sense that they'd be coming out here. Now, you can see the end of a gate, though they built this, the Turks or somebody built this wall right in the middle of a gate, and you can see where that's closed, and over here there's a triple gate. And one last thing I want to point out is, if you look at these steps, some of them are quite long, quite wide. Well, this one's maybe 2 feet wide, and then some of them are maybe only a foot wide. And some of them are a little higher than others. This is done on purpose. They wanted to make sure, the rabbis wanted to make sure that people weren't daydreaming when they walked into the temple, in a way that they would get people to begin to focus on where they were, was make all the steps uneven. It would catch your attention, and then you would kind of get hold of yourself and say, wow, I'm walking into the temple. I need to focus up.
And like I say, Solomon built a temple there. The Babylonians destroyed that temple when the Jews came back to Judah. Then they built another temple in the same place. Then Herod remodeled that temple, and that's the temple platform that we see today. And that temple was destroyed by the Romans. But the Bible tells us there's going to be another temple there, because God is going to dwell on Mount Zion, where he had David buy that piece of land and where Solomon built that first temple. That is where God's going to live out of all the places in the universe. It is the holiest place on earth.